Hey, everyone, and welcome back to Local Leaders of the Podcast. And I'm going to do something a little different with today's episode. I have a local, lifelong entrepreneur here on the show. He has had quite the journey thus far in life. So we're for sure going to discuss a little bit about several businesses that he owns and he has his hands in, especially here locally. But we're also going to discuss what he feels have been his keys to success thus far in his business and outside of his business as well. So first of all, with that, I want to welcome Gus LeBaron to Local Leaders of the Podcast. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
No stranger to podcasting. You've been doing a little bit of podcasting yourself?
Yes, we got started about 6 months ago. We got our own podcast going on basically mainly just trying to educate and train and influence early entrepreneurs.
Catch them early in life, right? Mm-hmm. I'll make sure that I link your podcast to the description of my podcast. So hopefully some people will get something out of this and they'll go want to check you out. Maybe some younger people wanting to learn something before they're actually there in life and they have to figure it out kind of playing catch up. Hopefully they'll get something out of that. Now, today we're here to talk about you. You've had quite an interesting journey in life, and some of this we talked about pre-recording this podcast, and some of this I'm going to be learning on the fly, which is how I preferred it with you. So let's start out. Where are you from and born, and where were you raised, those sorts of things, early life?
My story begins in Mexico. Born and raised up to 12 years old. Okay. So I was born on a farm in Mexico, growing up my whole life, working on the fields.
Working hard.
My father owned several hundred acres of farmland, planted corn, planted alfalfa for the cows. I mean, things like that. So I grew up country life my whole entire life. Really loved it, enjoyed it. So that's pretty much where I got started. Eventually, my father was traveling. My dad did a lot of traveling throughout his years, and he went through a town called Roswell, New Mexico.
Yeah.
So
UFOs.
Country. There you go. Yeah, that's the town.
Yeah.
So Roswell, New Mexico. He was passing by there for some reason, and he came across a school called New Mexico Military Institute. It's a military school. Okay. Goes from high school all the way to college, and for some reason he really liked what they had to offer there. And he made it a goal to try to get most of his kids to go there. Okay. So from Mexico at an early age, once I turned 12, I joined New Mexico Military Institute for high school. And that's kind of what brought me to the States and where.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. When you were really early in life, let's say before the age of 12, when you were that young, what do you remember wanting to be?
My kids ask me this question, and I get asked it a lot. And the best answer that I can give you is this, is that when I was young, all I remember is wanting to be rich.
Yeah.
That was it.
I think I had that one too. That sounded good to me at 11, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I think that I got to see early on as a young kid the influence that money had on people. Yeah. And I knew right away I needed to get as much of it as I possibly could.
That's awesome.
That was the mindset I had as a young kid, 12 years old before. So
yeah, very good. So as you said, you ended up in New Mexico, and that's pretty early on in life. What were the challenges back then for you? Was it something that you remember kind of blew your mind? I mean, I know people that have lived in this area their entire life. They've never been outside of, they've never been north of I-10 and I-12. You went to a whole nother country.
I was born and raised. Yeah, I got to get born and raised in a different country, so I got to be around a lot of the Mexican culture. Yeah, and some of the challenges is definitely trying to be able to connect with the culture, trying to be accepted by the culture,
by the American culture.
Well, both in Mexico and America. So if people can see this podcast, I don't necessarily look or fit the profile as a Mexican citizen.
You don't have an accent that someone would recognize.
Yeah. So I get that a lot. Like a lot of people, they ask me where I'm from. They think I'm from like Europe, or they think I'm from some other part of the country. When I tell them I'm from Mexico, they don't necessarily connect the dots. Like, where really? Like, you're 6'3" and somewhat caramel skin. Yeah. And so most of the people can't really make that connection. So I think that some of the challenges early on was definitely being able to connect with not only the Mexican culture, but the American culture, because I do have somewhat of an accent. So when I come to the United States, people will say, well, where are you from? I know I can hear somewhat of an accent. So I'll be like, I'm from Mexico. But then I go to Mexico and they're like, hey, bud, like, where are you from? You have green eyes, white skin, 6'3". You're not from here. So it's hard to fit in either or. It's always been a challenge growing up as a young kid.
Yeah. But you seem to have managed, obviously, well. So from there, from New Mexico, at some point you ended up in Louisiana. How did that occur?
Well, after high school, I didn't necessarily didn't pursue college. I never went to college. It was something for a lot of financial reasons. Yeah. My dad being a farmer, farmers struggle. It's just a tough lifestyle. So there's a lot of ups and downs.
Inexpensive, ridiculously so.
Anybody that can relate to being a farmer understands the ups and downs in life. So financial struggles through high school, I basically skipped college. So I started my entrepreneurship spirit right after high school. I started getting into construction, working with family members, started to learn how to work, understanding the ins and outs of business. And I bounced from state to state. I was in Minnesota for a little while. I went to Lincoln, Nebraska. I was in Kansas City. I was bouncing all over the country, just working on myself, learning how to work construction, how to build up, how to build a construction business in general. And the break that we caught was really Katrina.
Yeah.
So 2004, 5, I believe, when Katrina happened.
Yeah, 2005.
There you go. 2005 happened, and I remember I was at the point where, like, all right, I want to start my own business out. I want to start working for myself. I had my own tools. I had my own crews, and me and a really close relative named Gus LeBaron, really good friend, one of my best friends, we decided to team up together and say, let's go to Louisiana. Let's. There's a lot of work. There's going to be a lot of work over there. I called my dad, got his advice. He says, if I was in the construction business, I'd be in New Orleans right now.
Yeah.
So
good call.
We packed up our stuff and got all our tools in and showed up with some hopes and some prayers to make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so your influences at that point, and I'll use an example of myself. I wasn't always as put together as I am now, right? When I was 16, 17, I was wild. I mean, I had 2 or 3 things on my mind and that was it. And being a business owner or an entrepreneur was not one of them. And I actually met a guy when I was 17. I was working. I've always been a worker. I was working in high school at a local retail establishment. And this guy was in the military. And he was actually pretty high ranking in the military. And he was also the store manager of that store. And he carried himself pretty well. And I remember noticing how he carried himself. He'd come in sometimes, he was in the National Guard, and he would have drill that weekend, and he'd come in just for a couple minutes. He'd be dressed in his uniform, and I'm like, that dude's sharp right there, and he's got his stuff together. And I would spend a lot of time talking to him, and I really consider him one of my mentors in life. But the amazing thing about it was he didn't even realize he was. I didn't tell him, wow, man, I want to be like you when I grow up. But I would just watch this guy, and he seemed to have it all together, and he influenced me in a positive way, because at the time I figured out if I want to be like him, I can't do all this stupid stuff. And so I started watching that guy. He was an influence. Who was an influence for you early on, maybe around that age, maybe right before you headed to New Orleans after Katrina?
My greatest influence in my whole life has definitely been my best friend, Mark.
Yeah.
He's always been a moral compass.
Yeah.
To know when I was messing up and when I was doing right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's something a little emotional.
Sure.
But
I get it.
Father definitely struggled with my dad a lot growing up as a younger adult.
Yeah.
There was a lot of trauma, I guess you could say, as a younger, growing up with your father not being somebody you looked up to because a lot of the things that he was doing, so and so.
Yeah.
So there was definitely some childhood traumas that I had to get over a lot. So one of the pillars of my life has definitely been my best friend, Mark.
Yeah. And that's so important, I think, for someone, especially when they're struggling, they don't have anybody around them that maybe can motivate them would be a good word for it. In your example, I'm sure this guy motivated you. He seemed to be the voice of reason sometimes. And it was the same for me. That guy motivated me because I knew I was going down the wrong path, and this guy seemed to make all the right choices. And so you mentioned your podcast is about almost like mentoring young people and showing them, what the proper way to live a life in most instances. And I think that's something where a lot of people lack that from, these young people's perspective. Their influences are not typically people that are business owners and successful entrepreneurs. Usually it's what they see on YouTube or well, I don't want to say on YouTube because there's a lot of good shows on YouTube I watch, but music videos, maybe something like that, yeah. Mentorship, a very important thing. So you take off, you go to New Orleans and great timing for sure. Anytime there's a disaster, you're going to have a need for construction. And when you get there, what happens?
It was incredible. I mean, just mind-boggling to be able to see the damage to the extent that it was. I mean, we showed up to New Orleans, there was boats on the trees, cars. It was very sad to be able to see and witness such devastation. And at the same time, we were very thankful to be there because we knew that we could help and make a difference. And
Amen.
We were in a position where we knew nothing about entrepreneurship. We didn't know how to incorporate a business. We didn't know how to insure a business. We didn't know how to manage. We didn't know anything. So there was a lot of challenges up ahead. But nonetheless, we had the drive, the grit, and the want to be able to create it. So as long as there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, amen. And I'll tell you what, so important that there are people there to help people through disasters. I can speak to that firsthand. A lot of people listen to the show can. 2016, right here in Denham Springs, the whole town went underwater.
Yes.
Some 3,000 residents. Me being one of them. Matter of fact, where we're recording right now was underwater.
Yeah,
my home was underwater.
We got flooded too, yes.
Yeah, and it was the people that helped you to rebuild that became such an important aspect of your life at that point.
Yeah, we were able to be a part of that as well and help out people get their houses back.
Yeah,
in 2016. So we were fortunate to be able to help people out with that, and that was that was good. To be able to be part of making people's lives better is always good.
Yeah, and came back so much stronger after something like that. So New Orleans, Katrina, you get through that, and I'm sure you learned some lessons on the way. What are something you can reflect back on with that experience and say, man, we really learned, I really honed my skills in entrepreneurship through that, whatever it may be.
The best lessons I've learned so far from the time we showed up to now is that how important it is to be able to be valuable to people. Mm-hmm. Like how the being able to have bringing value to people's lives. I think that entrepreneur spirit and being able to own your own business is all about being in the people business, right? You're representing yourself to somebody else of how you can make their life better. And one of the best philosophies that I've stood by since day one that I've really enjoyed and I've been able to apply to my life and to my business is always do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've learned. I've not always done that. There's been times in my business when we got started off early, we told people we were going to do certain things that didn't get done. The communication was lacking. A lot of those ingredients in the recipe were missing. Yeah. And as I've gotten better, I've always, to this point now in my business, and I believe why we're successful now is because I follow that philosophy to its core. I do what I say, what I'm going to do. And if I don't, I let them know right away. Hey, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I need an extra day. I need an extra week. I need these extra tools. If you can follow that philosophy, that quote, do what you say you're going to do, you'll be successful in all things. I
think you nailed it on that. It'd be hard to argue with that philosophy. And I'll give you a quick example of the importance of something like that. Obviously, in a former life, I was somewhat in the construction business. I was on the paint aspect of things, the decorating side of things, and I managed or helped manage a lot of companies, a lot of people just starting. A lot of people would come to me and say, I want to start my own paint contracting business. Maybe they've been a painter for somebody else forever, and I had been in the business so long, they relied on me to kind of help them through that process. And I remember one guy in particular, speaking of Mexico, he was from Mexico, and man, he had it all. Very talented guy. And one day he calls me and he says, I got a problem. And I said, what? I need you to help me with this. I need you to call the customer. He's panicking. I said, well, what happened? He said, well, I quoted our price. We agreed on one coat of paint, and now she's coming back and saying we agreed on 2 coats. And I said, well, pull the contract and show her. This is one. He says, no contract.
No contract.
I said, what do you mean no contract? He said, Mr. Jim, I didn't get her to sign anything. And I said, always get them to sign. And I said, it's not that it's you don't trust them or they don't trust you. It's communication. Yeah. Sometimes things just get lost in translation. This woman may be just trying to get an extra coat out of you, or maybe she really did misunderstand and thought it was 2 coats. If you don't have it in writing, you got to do the 2 coats. I mean, that's the only way you're going to satisfy her as a homeowner. And really, at the end of the day, it's on the business owner to make sure that stuff is in writing. And he learned a hard lesson on that. But to this day, I still communicate with him all the time. And he tells me, I still get them contracts signed every time. And I make sure they know this is 1 coat or 2 coats.
Yeah, and those are some of the things that we learned since we got here, Katrina, too, is trial and error of knowing what not to do is so important, right?
Yeah.
And you learn that by making mistakes. So I'm a big firm believer that if you're not making a lot of mistakes in life, that is a mistake.
Yeah.
You need to be making mistakes. So
that's right.
The more mistakes that you're making, it means that you're trying.
Yeah.
And the more you're trying, the more success you're going to have in life. So 100%. I'm always a big firm believer, and I tell this to my kids all the time, make mistakes. Make mistakes, learn from them. Make another mistake, keep learning from them. And understand that every single day you're going to keep making mistakes. Don't ever be unkind to yourself when you make a mistake.
Yeah.
Let yourself know, hey, I just made a mistake, and guess what? I'm going to make more tomorrow, and I'm going to make more the next day. I'm going to keep making mistakes, and guess what? I'm going to keep learning from them, and guess what? I may become better because of them.
That's 100% accurate. And look, you can't run a business without trial and error and making a mistake. The important thing, as you just said, is learning from that and not continuing to make the same mistake. One of the number one things that you said in business is communication, whether it's with your customers or your employees for that matter. And I want to shift to that for a second. And, one of the things with entrepreneurship is typically, especially in a business like yours, you have employees, you have people that work for you.
Yes.
How hard is that? How much of a struggle is it to find good people?
It's a big struggle, Jim. Honest truth is when we just got started with our business, and we've been through a lot of ups and downs. However, I've ever had a hard time hiring people. I always wanted to do everything myself.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you have your business, and me and my wife have built this up since the ground up. My wife, I'm very blessed to have her in my life. She's been part of my team, and she's been a blessing in so many ways of being able to get me to where I am today. Yeah. And I say this because most of the time I was like, hey, it's just me and you. We don't need other people, right? Like if we can build this, and it's the stress of having that mindset was so overwhelming at some point. I said, if we're going to scale, we're going to grow as a business, and we're going to get big to where we want to be, we have to open up our doors to hiring more people. We have to grow. And
it's scary, ain't it?
It's super scary. Yeah. So scary. When I just started, I have a life coach, Becca, and I reach out to her, and I'm so out of my comfort zone. I'm so uncomfortable. And one of the things I've realized is that in business, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And
I love that. Yeah.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And when I started having that mindset, when I started getting that frame of mind, state of mind, we started growing. We started growing. We started getting bigger contracts. We started getting more contracts. We started having to have more employees. And now we're to the point where I am able to have a certain level of freedom that I've never had before, because I have this philosophy that I got from a great book. It's called Who Not How. And the philosophy is, if somebody can do your job 85% as good as you do it, let them do it.
Yeah.
Don't do that. And what I found out, though, through this process, that when I'm hiring these people to do certain tasks within my business that I don't want to do, they sometimes do it better.
Yeah.
I have about a handful of employees in my business that I honestly cannot do their job better. There's no way. And you'll start finding that out the hard way as you want to scale your business and grow it. Like take a leap of faith, right? Understand that people, for the most part, are honest. You're watching all this negative news all the time and all these negative comments on Facebook. And overall, human beings are pretty honest, and they want to help you. I mean, we want to help each other out. But if you get so caught up and listening to the news when they're reporting on 10% of a certain race or demographic or population and using that 10% to categorize the whole entire race, you're going to be frightened, right? You're going to say, all right, these people are not to be trusted, and these people are dishonest, and these people are this. But you'll find out slowly but surely that people, for the most part, are good and are honest.
Yeah.
And I found that out the hard way, because I've always had the mindset, trust nobody.
That's right.
Everybody's looking out for themselves. Nobody will do this. And as I've been growing my business in the last 10 years, and as I was hiring more and more employees, I started following this pattern that, hey, people actually overall want to do the right thing. They want to be honest. They want to do what they say they're going to do. There have been small instances where they don't, but I'm talking about 2%.
Yeah, there's always an exception.
Yeah, they're very, very minor. And those people, you can kind of see the red flags since the start. You start seeing how they do certain things. You're like, all right, this guy is probably not going to make it. But overall, I've been very pleased and happy with our team building it up to this point. We've built a great team, and it's been essential to be in the position that we are in today's market.
It's huge. And, I can relate to the struggle that you were just talking about, because your business is your baby. And you grew that baby. You and your wife grew that baby. And so your mindset early on is nobody, and it may be true that nobody is going to love it like you do. Nobody is going to love it. But, you just said it, and probably every successful business owner I've ever sat down in that chair right there you're sitting in has said the same thing. The key to business when you have, a good amount of employees is find people that are better than you at what you're not good at and hire them to do it. And as business owners, that's the biggest struggle, because there is a little bit of ego with us that this is our business and we know how to do everything. And we may know the basics of everything, but certainly there's people out there that can do editing, for example, better than I can. They'd be hard to find, but they're out there. So that's the hard part of business for me, and something I still struggle with to this day is delegation, letting someone else have it, trusting them that they're not going to mess my baby up. They're not going to take it and run it in the ground. They may actually do a better job, right? You mentioned your wife and the importance of that, and I want to shift to that a little bit. I want to talk about family. Another thing in entrepreneurship that is a struggle is finding balance. I will also be the first to admit that I'm probably out of balance. Well, not probably, I definitely am out of balance. I spend a lot of time working, and as entrepreneurs, we don't look at it as work. I'm sure you don't look at it necessarily as work. It's a life. It's a lifestyle that you chose, but you need a lot of support behind you with your family and people that understand that. And then you got to find ways to balance that, keep your family happy. You have a daughter let's talk about your daughter real quick. She's a sports phenom. Tell me about that.
I have two daughters, two older daughters. I have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old. My 14-year-old is a avid beach volleyball player.
Yeah.
I've been practicing with some of the Olympic athletes, Kristen and Taryn. I'm pretty sure some of the people have heard of them. They're one of the first girls to represent Louisiana in the Olympics for beach volleyball. That was one of the first times that's ever happened. They were recognized by the governor at some point. So my daughter is very fortunate and very blessed to be able to train with them. I have a younger 12-year-old that plays golf. We just got back from the Sam Burns in Shreveport tournament. They did really well. They crushed it all there. I got to spend some time with Sam Burns, which if nobody knows who Sam Burns is, he's a professional golfer that represented the United States in the Ryder Cup against Europe. Yeah. Even though we lost, but he still gave him a fight, and it was really great. But to answer your question about being able to stay in balance with family and your children, I have always had the mindset of give things the time they deserve.
Yeah.
So if I'm in the office, I am trying to stay as much focused on the office as I possibly can. I don't try to focus on my kids while I'm at the office. I don't try to focus on my families. I'm giving my employees and my business the time that it deserves while I'm there. Yeah. And when I'm home, I do the same thing for my family. I try to stay, give my family the time that they deserve when I'm at it, and I try to keep the office away. If somebody calls, I'll say, hey, I'm busy right now, send a text or an email. I'll get back to you tomorrow. And I try to schedule my time where most of my tasks are in the morning, early when I'm in the office, so that I can get most of it done. And if something falls through after lunch, it'll be minor, but I'm still able to really have my energy and my focus within my family. And I'm not going to say it's perfect, because I still struggle with it.
Sure.
Every entrepreneur is going to have a very hard time keeping them 100% distant from each other, because anybody that's entrepreneurs has a very proactive mind. I mean, they're always trying to find solutions. They're trying to find solutions to problems that haven't even happened yet.
Right.
Every entrepreneur struggles with that, and that's why most entrepreneurs have a hard time sleeping at night.
Yeah.
You know, they have to be they're on medication or some kind of pills, because they can't stop that mind, because you're depending on you. You're depending on you.
Yeah.
And you're not depending on, you're an employee, and you go to work and you're getting your check. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're not making those sales and you're not turning over those products or those services, you're going to go bankrupt, right? That's a lot of pressure. That's hard. It's a big boulder on your shoulders. And I think it's very important, if in life you really have to prioritize and separate those. It's so important. Otherwise, you're going to get burnt out real quick in this business. You're not going to last.
That's right. That's right. Burnout is a real thing.
It very, very much really is.
Even when you love what you're doing.
Yeah, no matter what it is, you're gonna find ways you're always going to try to find ways how to do more, and you have to stop yourself. You have to say, all right, what am I really doing all this for? It's for my family. So if I'm not taking the advantage of being an entrepreneur and being able to spend time with my family, then why don't I just get a 9 to 5? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
At that point, like,
yeah, let someone else have all the pressure.
Like, hey, one of the greatest things that's come out of being an entrepreneur is that you get to control your time.
Yeah.
You know, and I really recommend anybody that's entrepreneur is that try to figure out how to scale your business bigger. If you're still in that small mindset where I'm doing everything and nobody else can do it, you're losing out on a lot of freedom, a lot of finances, being able to have better opportunities to make more money. But when I find out that when we started scaling and I started hiring more people to do a lot of the things that I didn't want to do, I started finding out that I started having more and more freedom. You know, which
is nice, right?
Yeah, that's the whole. Yeah. So you don't want to own a job. Essentially, is what you do is you're owning a job by you doing everything. You want to own a business, right? You want to be able to dictate what hours you want to work, what hours you don't want to work, if you even want to work. That's really the true spirit of owning a corporation or owning a business. Most people own a job and they don't know the difference. That's the biggest problem.
How did you come to that realization? When do you know?
If you're not able to leave your business for more than a month, you own a job. That's a reality. If you don't have the structures in place that you're able to walk away from your office and not come back for a month, you own a job, because that business can't survive without you. So you're part of the structure of that business. And by you being a part of it, it can't survive without you. If it can't survive without you, then you have to be a part of it, meaning that you are obligated to be there. That means that you own a job. You're an employee.
Yeah.
And the true spirit of being an entrepreneur, owning a real business, is being able to have a business that's bringing some of that mailbox money that you have zero tasks to do with it. I mean, and people just don't understand that.
Passive income.
Passive income. Most people own a job. They don't own a business.
Yeah.
And what I found out by you scaling, hiring people to do the things that you don't want to do, and eventually you just get left with the things you do want to do, like easy stuff. I mean, things that you can manage from out of state. You can go to a vacation in Paris and be able to answer a few phone calls, make some transfers, minor stuff, but you're away. You don't have to be there. It doesn't need you to survive. And most people will never understand that until they do it. Yeah.
And I think the fear with a lot of business owners, there's a fear there of hiring people that may actually be a detriment to your business, right? They may be those sort of headaches that you got to deal with. But there's also a fear of, now I've got to pay this person. Now I've got even more responsibility. You know, if something happens to me, and I'm not driving in business, I'm not hurting someone else's livelihood. Well, when you hire employees, now you've got a whole nother responsibility there, because you want to pay them, right? They've got to get paid. Those jobs you're picking up now, you're splitting income in a way. You're not splitting it, but they're taking a certain percentage of your profit away from you. That's one outlet. That way, though. The way I look at it, anytime that I hire an employee, I look at it like I'm replicating myself. Like I'm making a copy of myself, and they're assigned to a certain task of the business that's essential. So you want to just be hiring people just to hire people. They have to have something for them to do. Sure. So I just look at it like I'm just replicating myself. And the more I can replicate myself, the more I can copy myself and paste, the more money I'm going to be able to make, because, hey, I'm good at making money. Like I do well, right? So
If you had, another one of you could be making 2 podcasts at a time, right? 3 podcast shows at a time, 4 podcasts, 5 podcasts. So I look at it the same way. I'm just copying myself. So if I'm able to get 1 contract now and I hire more people, now I'm able to get 2 contracts, now 3 contracts. Now we can do 20 contracts a year because I just replicated myself over and over again. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, hopefully it does. It actually does. Mm-hmm. And I've sometimes as business owners, at least in my case, I don't practice what I preach sometimes, and I know the right thing to do, but there's ebbs and flows in business, and very fortunate with my business that I've got more than I can handle, but that's also a problem because I have more than I can handle, right? So my option there is to either send business down the road or hire people to handle it. And so I get what you're saying, and I 100% agree with what you're saying. And of course, I'll use me as an example. I know that the more people I hire, the more money I'm going to make because I know that my business plan is solid, and there's a need for it, right? And it's great advice. It's probably the hardest lesson that business owners will learn is when to scale. Because there's timing there. You can actually grow yourself out of business if you're not careful. I've seen people grow too fast and they end up sacked with a bunch of debt, and then something happens and business maybe drops a little bit.
You're going to know though. You're going to know right away. Like we never hire anybody unless there's a need. And as soon as the way that I know that there's a time to hire somebody else is when one of my employees is overwhelmed. Like they're frustrated, like, hey, I don't have enough time to get all this done. I'm like, all right, we need to hire somebody else. Or even myself, if I'm overwhelmed, right? Point. So if I'm overwhelmed, like I have a freaking 100 tasks in my desk, I can't get them all done. We have to hire somebody else. Like there's no way that I'm going to be able to handle all this. And that's how you know when you have to hire somebody else. But I'll never hire somebody else unless there's the work there for them. But as long as the task is there, you need to be charging for it, right? Sure. You have to, because that's where the income is coming from. That's and if you're being overworked and you go bankrupt, it's because you never bid the project correct. You never added the right profit margins to your service, to your product. So it's all there. It's all categorized in your budget, and you just need to make sure that there's enough hours in there for it. And if one person's having to do way too many hours on a certain task, then you have to hire somebody else. And that's really where it comes down. And that's how you're going to know when to hire somebody else. As I was building my business, I would start seeing some of my team members really overwhelmed, really stressed out. And I said, all right, we have to hire somebody else. And if it goes down to the point where our profit margin starts going down, then we got to charge more because this is what it takes to get this job done. And if we're having these struggles, so is my competition. There's no way around it. And my competition is not having this problem, is meaning they're going to get burned out and they're going to be out of business within a year or two anyways, because there's only so long they're going to be able to do this for.
Yeah.
So it all kind of falls into place at one point, but it takes confidence. It takes confidence and belief in yourself to be able to do it. Because I know that I struggled with it. There was a lot of therapy sessions with my life coach. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to go bankrupt, because I had that same mentality that you're saying. My overhead's going to get too big. Too much overhead is never good. However, what I found out though, as I hired more people and more employees, I also found the work for them to be able to fill in those gaps as we went growing. And it's just growing and growing and growing. And that's just a pattern that happened to fall on. It's like you have to be able to hustle out there and fill in their time work to make sure you keep them busy.
Yeah.
So
wow,
it fell into place pretty good.
Your podcast in particular, you cover a lot on books and motivation. I guess you could say motivational business related books. Give me a couple of books, and you've already named one, but give me a couple of more books that you would say were kind of key, because I'm also like that. I take in a lot of literature on, I call it self-help, just food for the mind, man. And I've always been a curious person, which makes sense with what I do for a living. What are some books you would say that's helped you along the way?
The best book that I can recommend anybody listening to this podcast is if you're an entrepreneur and you're a true entrepreneur and you want to, either you're starting an entrepreneurship or you're an entrepreneur, you never read this book, and I would say most people have, is the book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie.
That has got to be, to some extent, your second Bible. Yeah. I mean,
it's been around so long. It's timeless. Oh, the lessons in that book.
It's an art piece. So anybody that has not read that book, I highly recommend that you read it, but not only read it once, but read it twice. I've read it about 6 times in my lifetime. And sometimes you got to keep rereading it, because a lot of life lessons you got to relearn. So that's been a really good book. So How to Win Friends and Influence People has been really key essential to be able to learn how to interact with people, how to socialize with people, how to do well in sales, all the above. There's another great book that I've read recently. So through the struggles of entrepreneurship, everybody deals with anxiety, overthinking, stress, all the above, right? There's just so much that goes into entrepreneurship and so many unknowns coming to you that it's hard to deal with them. There's a really great book, and I'm sorry, but I forget the name of the author, but the book is called Don't Believe Everything That You Think. That book was so good to deal with the anxieties of life. And it's a short book, 2 hours long. I mean, but it's pure gold.
I haven't read it,
Such
and I'll
a
have
great
to
book.
check
You
that
really
one
got to read that one. I've read it. I probably read that one 10 times because it's so short. It's only 2 hours.
Yeah.
And being it is so short, but the material is so powerful. And it's just really essentially the premise of the book really just says that all your life struggles and pain comes from your thoughts.
Yeah.
But you just really got to read it. And it's been such an impact in my life whenever the wheels are just coming off, where I'm just overthinking, my mind's going 100 miles an hour. I go back to that reference and I really think about where this is coming from. It's just coming from my overthinking. That's really it. You know?
Yeah.
And it gives you life lessons of how to stop it, how to put the brakes on it, how to take a deep breath and just reset yourself.
Wow. I look forward to reading it. I will. I'll really definitely get that one. And I'll link the books that we talk about in the podcast description. So if anyone's driving right now and when you get home, click the link if you'd like to check it out. I'll throw a couple in there that have really inspired me. And I've been a reader my entire life. I can remember at 12 and reader of those types of books, motivational types of books. The first book that really had an impact on me was called See You at the Top. It was by a guy named Zig Ziglar, who is one of the most amazing salespeople in history. He was from Mississippi and had that Mississippi accent. And this guy would sell out coliseums talking about, just what you and I are talking about today. Not so much entrepreneurship, but how to sell yourself to other people, which plays a big part in entrepreneurship. And so shout out Zig Ziglar. He's passed away now, but I'll shout out his company, which is still around. But See You at the Top was one. And then recently I read one by Patrick Bet-David. It was called Your Next 5 Moves. Oh, yeah. Great book on planning out your business strategy in advance. Too many people, and I want to get your opinion and your thoughts on this as a successful business owner. I find a lot of business owners fly off the cuff. So they know their business. Maybe they're a painting company, and every day they have people that they're doing jobs for. They own this company. Maybe they got 4 or 5 guys working for them, and it seems like they're always busy. But if you stopped them and you said, how much money are you making at the end of the month? They couldn't tell you. They have no idea. They know what they make job to job, right? Yeah. And so they're flying by the seat of their pants. There's no planning to where are we going to be in a year, where are we going to be in 2 years. So that's a good book to really, really form your business strategy 5 steps ahead, which is kind of how he believes that you should form your business strategy. You should always be proactive and not reactive. And what are your thoughts on that?
I am a big believer in something, pretty much goals. So I look at it like who he's talking about is building a set of goals for yourself, for your business, for your family. So one thing that I do religiously every single New Year's with my families, we sit down and we write down 10 goals that we want to have for the years.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
write down not only the goals for myself, but for my business, for my family, for my kids. And we all sit down and we write 10 goals. And I would love the audience to really do this in life, because the goals are really what they are is their GPS navigation system to where you want to be at in the next 5, 10 years or at the end of the year. So I have 5-year goals, I have 10-year goals, I have 1-year goals, I have quarter goals. So to me, those are the next 5 moves, right? Like where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish and what are we doing? And anybody that's successful in life has implemented some kind of system where they're instilling these principles, goal setting. And that's been a major change in my life. It's something I started doing in the last 10 years. And I would say that that's been one of the greatest impacts in my life. Just being able to know where you're going, where you want to be at.
Yeah, it's huge. I'll tell you, one thing that you said that just stuck out to me was goals in your personal life and your business life. So if you sit people down and you say, hey man, what are your goals for the next year? I don't know if I'd say most, but probably half of your entrepreneurs, your business owners are going to list out 4 or 5 business goals, nothing personal. And it's important to have both, right? It's important to say, hey, I want to be a better husband this year. Maybe I want to do a date night. I want to set a goal to do a date night.
Those are some of my goals. I date my wife 3 times a month, things like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's so important. But I'll be the first to admit, most business owners, they don't put the importance on that personal stuff. And if your personal life ain't right, your business life ain't going to be right.
So I have them right here. I keep them. Yeah, these are they're my second Bible. I have my goals right there. These are my goals for the year. And I keep them, I see them every single morning, and they're my compass. All right, what are we doing today? What direction are we going in? And I feel like the people that don't have these in their life, they're lost. They're wandering, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do, and they don't have. If you don't plan to fail.
Yeah,
really simple. Hey, make a plan or plan to fail.
I love it, and it's true.
Very true.
It's true, and one of the things I've done is I actually, for the last 25 years, I've had this clipboard. I've had it from way before I had a podcast, when I was still working for somebody else. And I would carry this clipboard around, and every night I would sit down about, 6:30 or so, maybe after eating dinner, and I would write out everything I was going to do the next day. And it would be 10 or 12 things. And a lot, in my life, a lot of it was sales calls or whatever, or go see this customer, take this guy to lunch. And as I would do them, I would cross them off. The next day, I may only end up crossing off 6 of those things. The next 4 would go to the next day. So I would prioritize those to where by the end of the week, I was knocking out those daily goals. But I'm like you. I also had quarterly goals, and it wasn't just sales related. Maybe I want to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Things like that. Health. Mm-hmm. How important is health to a business owner?
Health is wealth.
Yeah, health is wealth. There you go. Man, we got some phrases on this one.
Yeah, we do.
Some people are learning some stuff today.
A rich man has many, many dreams, right? Has many wants, I guess you can say. But a sick person only has one. Yeah. And that is to feel better. That's it.
Wow. True. And deep. Yeah. I mean, when you really think about that and you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, that's a deep statement. And it's very true. And if your health's out of whack, if your personal life's out of whack, good luck getting your business life in line. I've never seen a business owner that had haywire behind the scenes, if you will. Everything outside of his business was haywire, meaning his personal life or his health and his business be on point. Never seen that, because usually one thing controls the rest. You got to learn, and I'm not preaching to people here, but you said it. You got to learn to leave your business stuff at work and don't bring it home. And sometimes that's hard. Especially if you've had a really tough day in business, but so important.
Very, very, very important. Being able to separate the both and just really understanding that as you're building your guys' business, right? Anybody that's listening, that there's going to be times where your life is out of balance. All right, you're prioritizing work a little bit more than your family, or you're prioritizing your family even less than your work, and you're struggling financially, or vice versa, or you're prioritizing your work more than your health, and things suffer. But what's really important is the awareness behind it, understanding and having the conversation even with your family. Like, look at my kids, or you have a meeting. We were struggling financially. We're going to have to make some sacrifices. Dad's going to have to work a little harder this year to get us ahead in life. But being able to recognize it and make sure that your family's behind you and they understand what you're trying to do, so that awareness is there. And then once you meet those goals, those financial goals, you can kind of come back to balance again. Or the same thing, hey, all right, I really sacrificed my health because I needed to get ahead. All right, I'm going to really take it easy with my business. Have a meeting with your team in your office saying, look, guys, I really need to take a little time for myself. I'm going to be taking off work a little early, getting off because I need to go to the gym. I need to go work out. I need to prioritize my health. But the awareness and the communication between your family, your team members at work, and even with yourself, that you're recognizing it. A lot of the people do this unconsciously, right? they don't even know. They don't even have a plan, again, behind it. So they're spiraling out of control, and they have no idea what's happening with their life. They don't know why, they have high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes. Their wife is leaving them. Their business is going under. It's because they've never really had the awareness behind it and being able to understand it. If they're going to be out of balance, at least be aware of it. Understanding, hey, I know that I'm neglecting my family right now, but it's for a purpose, and there's a plan behind it. And my family's aware of it, and they're behind me, and they're supporting me. Yeah.
You have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and be honest with yourself. And hard for people, most business owners, and I think it's important for a business owner to have confidence. Ego is not always a bad thing. It's a bad thing when it's out of control, but ego is important in business, I find, because I think that ego drives how other people perceive you. And if someone, if you're someone that doesn't have a whole lot of self-confidence, that's going to stand out. And it's hard to get people to do business with someone that lacks self-confidence a lot of times. And so you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror sometimes and let go of that ego and say, hey, this is why this is failing. I'm not spending enough time here or there. And there will be times in business, as you said, where maybe you do need to dedicate a little more time to your business. Things change. One thing about any type of business, I don't care what business you're in, it's constantly changing. Things are coming out. There's especially in the construction business, what was popular yesterday may not be popular today. I remember when faux finishes were all of the thing, and people were spraying drywall mud all over their sheetrock, and that was a beautiful decorative technique that not many people knew how to do, but it's gone away from that. So as a business, that's something, if you're good at that, you're going to have to change along with it. And, the
best thing that people can do when it comes to the topic that you're talking about, as far as balance, and when things do fall apart and aren't going your way, and you're missing your quotas, and you're having struggles in life, the best mindset that I've been able to really apply to my life that's been the most helpful is going to this quote: "It's your fault."
Yeah.
If I take responsibility, whether it's my fault or not, I don't even care. If I lose that contract, if my wife leaves me, if my kid, is struggling, or if I'm, not winning in life in some general, if I tell myself it's your fault, immediately my mindset goes like, all right, if it's my fault, that means I can do something about it. That means I didn't do something that I can possibly do now to change the outcome. And most people these days, they have a mindset of, it's not my fault, it's his fault. And it's that person's fault, and it's the weather's fault, and it's world's fault, or whatever they want to blame. And instantly they become victims and powerless to their situation. So I believe that anybody listening to this, if you can apply that to your life, just anything that happens in your life, whether it's your fault or not, whether it's your kid failing school or your kids getting into drugs or whatever it is, just tell yourself, this is my fault. And as soon as you tell yourself that, and you really truly say it to yourself and believe it, your mindset's going to go, well, if it's my fault, then I can do something about it. And if I can do something about it, I can change the outcome. And if I can change the outcome, I can stop this.
Yeah. Jocko Willink wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. And it's very similar to what you're saying, where you have to take extreme ownership of your business, of your life, and you have to own the victories and the mistakes.
Yes, that is good too. So one thing that's important is that, yes, when you're sitting in that jacuzzi at that 5-star resort, and you look around and you see your kids playing around, or you're with your girlfriend, or whatever his life is treating you, just look around and say, this is my fault. Yeah. Do that as well. Don't just do the negative stuff. Do the positive as well. I love that. And I do that as well. I look around and I wake up in the morning and I see my baby boy in the bed, and I see my wife, and I see my house, and I tell myself, hey, this is your fault. You did this.
Yeah. That's right. Let's talk about your business quickly. You're in Denham Springs. KOS Drywall?
KOS Drywall and Painting, yes. We're right here. Our office is right here on Pete's Highway, right behind the Walmart.
And y'all do primarily drywall and painting, or all of the above?
We do all the Division 9 of the plan. So we do everything from metal stud framing to suspended ceilings, ACT ceilings, drywall, painting.
Commercial, residential?
We do some commercial, we do some residential. So we do a little bit of both. We do some multifamily, things like that. So that's pretty much what most of our business does. If anybody needs a drywall repair, please don't call us. We'll call.
Yeah, if you get a hole in the wall.
I get every year during Christmas time, we get phone calls. Hey, we're up in the attic getting our Christmas tree, and my husband stepped through the ceiling. I'm like, I'm sorry, but we don't really kind of do that too much. But we tackle most of the larger projects around the country. Do a lot of the, the housing shortage. So there's a lot of apartment buildings going up, and we tackle a lot of those bigger projects. And we recently just opened also an electrical company. So that's something we could help you out. If you're building a new home in the area and you need an electrical quote, please give us a call. So that's something we're excited about. We just teamed up with Kentech Electric, with Steve Saloom. We got him on the team, and we've been working together now. So any electrical needs, residential, commercial, we're happy to help you guys out with that.
Yeah. And so on that electrical side, I want to talk about that for a second. So if it's new construction, do you deal with the electrical on that end too, or is it just existing homes where maybe they need a panel switch out? Or
mostly just doing the new construction, mainly the new construction and anything new construction, commercial, small retail, anything to do with new construction. The smaller stuff we don't really mess with too much unless it's a favor or something for one of our customers. We'll do it, but we're prioritizing mainly new builds.
I got a lot of builders listening to this show.
I love
a lot of them, big builders too. So y'all give that company a shout, and if you send me the link, I'll link that in the description as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put the website on there.
Make it easy. Yeah, exactly. One more thing before we get out of here that I want to talk about specifically. And it's kind of going to be a circle back, but it's important. Look, one thing that I have stood on a pulpit about, if you will, is the importance of trades today. And I speak from a lot of experience because I believe that a good electrician or a good drywall guy or a good painter or a good framer, those in and of its core are talents. Okay. I have seen probably in the last 10 years a shift to where you used to have, and I'll use painters because that's what I dealt with, where you used to have these old school painters that were just, man, it was art to them, and they were just great. There has been a shift to a quality reduction in some cases with some of those industries. And I think a lot of that, there's such a push towards college that the trades have suffered because of it. And look, there's some people out there, if you're going to be a heart doctor, go to college, get your medical degree in heart surgery. I don't want anyone operating on my heart that doesn't have a college degree or a medical degree. There is a serious lack in the trade field of qualified people in trades. And I think some of that is caused because parents push college to people that they may just not be made for college for whatever reason. It has nothing to do with brain power. They may just not like school too much, and maybe they're a talented framer, or maybe they're a talented painter. And these are where your entrepreneurs are being born. If you're gonna grow up to own a construction company, I mean, I guess you could graduate in construction management and take that route, or you could be someone like in your case, rather than go the college route. You kind of learned from the ground up on what this business was, and then you ran with it and you built an amazing company based off of that. How do you feel about that?
A quote that comes to my mind when you're saying this is a quote that people have probably heard 1,000 times. It says that strong men create good times, and good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And the cycle goes, right? So I feel that hard times create strong men. Yeah. And then it kind of the cycle kind of
keeps
goes, right?
going.
So right now we're in the phase where we've created a lot of weaker men, I guess you can say, in a sense, in the fact that we've had
times.
We've had some great times, things we have not struggled. And I say it for myself, growing up in Mexico, I've really been able to see the face of growing up lacking in life, just good set of clothes, good set of shoes, food in the fridge, a nice bed to be able to sleep on. So I feel that a lot of the younger generations have grown up with having so much, it's made them weak in a lot of sense. And now they're seeing you're having to also, you throw in there things like social media where they see these kids, making millions of dollars just making YouTube posts or drop shipping on Amazon or things. So the incentive is not there, right? Like, do they really want to go sweat out in the sun and build a house and framing when they're seeing their buddy, making hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Gaming.
Yeah, there you go. Even gaming. Yeah. So we're creating a generation of definitely weaker men. We need to definitely, one of the advantages that I had as a younger adult, my dad always did for me, is during the summers and summer after school, I would go work in construction with my uncles or my brothers, and I was out there hustling. So I got to learn a trade at a younger age that I was able to apply later on in my life to build a multi-million-dollar business debt-free, no debt, right? So I think that if you as a parent and you do have a younger kid, send them with their uncles to go frame, send them to go, roof, do electrical work, HVAC work, have them instill how to have that trade in case they ever need it one later, how to weld, things like that. And have them do it in their summer and their time off, and that's what my dad did for me. I was either working on the farm or I was either working in construction in the United States during my summers. And when I became an adult, I was able to use those skill sets to be able to build a multi-million-dollar company, and I love it. It was something that was really good for me, and I don't feel that we're doing that for the younger generation. I feel it might come and bite us.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that 100%. And work ethic is nothing to be taken lightly in the entrepreneurship field. When you first start, you're going to have to work. You're going to have to build it. And the sharks are going to be out there and they're going to be biting at you. And you've got to be able to weather that storm. And a lot of that work ethic is built when you're 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. Look, I can tell you, I was never given anything in life. I can remember when I was 12 and I wanted to go to a movie with my friends, my dad would expect me to cut the grass or other things, around the house to give me $2 to go to a movie. I'm old. It was cheap back then, but it built something in me. And let me tell you one thing, I ain't afraid to work. And I credit my work ethic with about 50% of any success that I've had. Because I've always been one to say, you may be smarter than me, may be better looking than me, but you ain't going to outwork me.
There you go.
It ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's been a blessing. I was blessed with that, but I agree with you that I think some of the younger generation just haven't experienced that. It's fell off. So it's up to us as an older generation, maybe, to mentor those kids. One thing I will credit Livingston Parish, Louisiana for is some of our schools now have trade programs, high schools. I know Walker High School has a phenomenal welding program. You brought up welding. They have that there. So what do you think, man? Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
No, I just want to really thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, man, I enjoyed it. We could talk for 4 hours in here.
Yeah, I agree. I really want to just finish off with just anybody that's listening, if you guys need any help with your guys' electrical or drywall work, definitely give us a call. I'm very fortunate to be part of this company now and being able to build it up as I was. I remember early on when we wanted to name the company, I remember. Oh,
I did want to talk about it. I'm glad you brought that up.
I was thinking about, a name for it. And the company is named KOS. And everybody always asks me, what does KOS stand for? And I kind of lie a little bit. I'm like, it's like Kings of She-Rock. But the truth of the matter is the name actually in Spanish is spelled chaos. So there's an A hidden in the symbol. And the reason why I wanted to name it Chaos, it comes from a good scientist. His name was Edward Lorenz. Edward Lorenz was a weatherman, and he was trying to predict weather patterns. This was several 100 years ago or so when he was doing this. So he was calculating his formats in his computer and his algorithm. He was trying to figure out how to predict it, and he found out that as he was trying to predict the weather, as the weather was making these small, tiny little changes, he had to adjust his formula. And every time he adjusted the formula, it caused the whole pattern to change. And as this pattern was developing on his computer, he started seeing it, started creating a pattern. and ended up looking like a butterfly. And that's where you get the movie of the butterfly effect. So, and the butterfly effect says that the flaps of a butterfly in Africa will cause a storm in South America. And the whole premise of the whole theory is that small little changes make big impacts. And it's something that I apply to my life and to my business, my personal life, and everything that I do is always try to make small little changes that make you better every single day. Create a better version of yourself by the small little things. Small hinges move big doors. So that's where the name comes from.
Yeah, water can pierce rock. If it just drips on it and drips on it over time, it will actually pierce rock. And, when you think about it, you brought up the butterfly effect just quickly. Something that, and I try not to think about this, y'all, too often because it absolutely blows my mind. But have you ever looked back at your life and you think, wow, if I wouldn't have zigged instead of zagged, this would have never happened. If I wouldn't have met this person, it wouldn't have led to this, which led to this, which led to where I'm at now. Those sort of things. Sometimes the smallest interactions or the smallest experiences, you can literally trace back your life to that and say, if this wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be here.
I do that all the time.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh, yeah.
I don't even like thinking about it sometimes because I'm like, man, it just blows my mind. But life is it's a blessing, and it's also something that I don't think people take a lot of time to look back and really look at what led them to wherever they are. But there's so many little things that just lead you. You just got to be open to accepting that. So I think that some people got some stuff out of what we talked about today. I hope so. I'm going to link everything we talked about in the description, but I do want to say this is why Local Leaders of Podcast, regardless of all the other things that I do, and I've been very blessed that this business grew wings and I was able to branch off and do other aspects of media. But this will always be my baby. And why? Because I get to sit down, talk to people like Gus, who I learn from. And you're never too good in business or too experienced in business or too old for that matter to learn. And so I appreciate you coming on. And I got something out of today. So I'm hiring 15 people when we look.
I love it.
So I appreciate you coming on. We'll link everything in the description. You ever want to come back, just let me know. And look, if y'all enjoyed this, comment in the description and go follow Gus's podcast. I'm going to put that in the description as well. And they're talking about all kinds of good stuff every week on that show. So thank you so much for coming on. And until next time, reminding all of you to love your community, support local business, and keep leading. Thank you very much.